I'm almost speechless. It's just mind blowing that my brother was elected Pope today. We've kind of known he was special, and we used to tease him about being Pope.
At 73, Pope Leo's older brother reveals the awful truth about him. Louis Provost, the elder sibling of Pope Leo I XIV, described the moment of his brother's election as one of shock and awe. This is not some random family squabble or another church scandal. No, this is personal. It is deep. And listen, you cannot afford to click away halfway through this video, not just because the ending will leave you speechless but because the way this story unfolds is unlike anything you have seen online this year. Ready? Let us go, because what comes next will shake you to your core. The bond between brothers is central here. Here is a fact about Pope Leo I XIV, right from the very beginning, the man has always had it in him. You know how sometimes someone steps into a big role and instead of shaking everything up or trying to reinvent the wheel, they actually lean into the things that were already working? That is Pope Leo for you. He did not come in guns blazing or acting like he was going to turn everything upside down. No. Instead, he embraced the spirit and tone that Pope Francis had spent years carefully building. And honestly, that is saying a lot because Pope Francis was not just a pope. He was a breath of fresh air, someone who brought this grounded, gentle, deeply pastoral energy into the Vatican. And Leo I XIV did not just nod to that legacy. He basically said, I am walking in those same shoes, and I am walking with all of you. Like in that 2023 interview when Leo said, the authority we have is to serve, to accompany priests, to be pastors and teachers. I mean, how real is that? How refreshingly unpower hungry is that? It is not about towering over others with fancy titles and long speeches. It is about walking beside them. And is that not what real leadership looks like? The kind that does not make you feel small but actually lifts you up. That was the tone of his very first papal address too. From the jump, he was like, I am here to walk with you, not ahead of you. That whole idea of journeying with the people of God is so deeply Francis, and Leo is picking up that baton without missing a beat. What kind of secret makes a brother stay silent for over 70 years? And why now, after all this time, has he finally decided to speak up? At 73 years old, Pope Leo's older brother just dropped a truth bomb that has got people gasping. And it is not the kind of story the church ever wanted you to hear. Stick around because what he reveals at the very end will leave your jaw on the floor. During his very first Mass as Pope, when the whole world was watching, he went ahead and paid the most heartfelt tribute to Pope Francis, not in a performative, look at me being respectful way, but in that sincere, warm tone that makes you feel like this guy really means it. He reminded everyone that Francis taught us something precious, that we are called to bear joyful witness to our faith, not gloomy rigid rules and restrictions. Faith, but joyful, living, breathing faith in Jesus the Savior. I mean, can you imagine how grounding that must have felt for so many people watching, especially in a time where the world feels so chaotic? Now let us talk about the whole bridge building thing, because Pope Leo does lean into that. From that first moment he appeared on the balcony of St. Peter's, he did not make it about himself. He made it about us. We have to be a church that works together to build bridges and to keep our arms open, he said. And honestly, is that not exactly what we all need more of right now? Less division, more connection. A church that does not shut doors but actually holds them open. And let us be real. In an institution that has been historically more known for its walls than its bridges, that is a bold and beautiful message. And here is the twist, even though Leo I XIV is American, people in the Vatican say he is the least American of the Americans. That is not a dig at Americans. It is more about how global his mindset is. He is not coming in hot with that my way or the highway approach. He is thoughtful, measured, someone who listens more than he talks. When he was head of Peru's bishops, he was not the guy stirring up drama or planting flags. He was the calm voice in the room, the one bringing people together across ideological lines. And that is not easy, especially in a church that has a lot of different perspectives fighting for attention. But Leo somehow manages to hold the center, and not in a boring, vanilla way. In a let us all sit down and actually hear each other out kind of way. Is that not rare these days? Sure, his style might be a little more formal than Pope Francis's, which means fewer casual hugs. But it is a bit more structured. And the heart of the message is still humility, still service, still Christ at the center. He is not here to be a rock star pope. He is not here to chase applause. He is here to make himself small, as he once put it, to glorify Christ. And that phrase, make oneself small, just hits different, does it not? Because how many leaders do you know who willingly shrink their egos in order to magnify something bigger than themselves? Leo I XIV might be new in the role, but it already feels like he has been preparing for this kind of leadership his whole life. Not because he wanted the spotlight, but because he understands what it means to carry it with grace. And maybe that is the kind of leadership we need right now. Not flashy, not loud, but grounded, humble, and focused on walking side by side with a church that is trying to heal, grow, and open its arms a little wider. Is that not something worth holding on to? What the family saw that the world did not: behind all the formal robes, titles, and sacred ceremonies, there is a man. One that only his family truly knows. And his name is Robert Provost, better known to the world now as Pope Leo the 14th. But let us be real. Titles can make someone look untouchable, almost like they are floating above everyday problems. That is just not the full picture, according to his brother Louis. If you strip away all the grandeur and solemn pageantry, what you will find is someone who has battled more quiet struggles than anyone would ever guess. Robert's story is not just about rising through the ranks of the Catholic Church. It is about carrying a weight most people cannot even imagine. And honestly, does it not make you wonder how many so-called powerful people are silently breaking inside? Louis, being his brother and lifelong confidant, gives us a rare, deeply human look into who Robert really is. He struggled with the weight of responsibility, Louis admits. From the time Robert decided to become a priest, then eventually a bishop, a cardinal, and finally pope, each step came with sacrifices that did not just affect him but rippled through his entire family. Can you imagine constantly choosing your calling over Christmas dinners, birthday hugs, or just laughing around the table with the people you love? Because that's what he did. Louis remembers it well: years and years of holidays that only featured a phone call, sometimes not even that. While most of us grow up assuming we'll always have our siblings close for family barbecues or holiday toasts, Robert gave that all up in service of something bigger than himself. And it wasn't a glamorous sacrifice. It was quiet, lonely, and deeply felt. You'd think that with such a strong calling he'd never look back, right? But even he wasn't immune to doubt. After their mother died in 2011, Robert entered a very dark season of grief. And this is the part where you pause and go, wait, so even a future pope can feel like he's losing his way. Absolutely. Louis remembers that time vividly. That was perhaps his darkest time, he says. Robert would question if his whole life's work, decades of service and sacrifice, was actually making the difference he hoped it would. And isn't that something we all feel at some point? That lingering fear that our effort, our choices, might not be enough. It's weirdly comforting to know that even someone as spiritually anchored as Robert had those very human fears. But it wasn't just grief that made things tough. The pressure was relentless. When Robert became a bishop, it was like someone had turned the dial all the way up on stress. Louis recalls getting those late-night phone calls where Robert would just need to talk through the decisions that had the power to affect entire communities. Can you imagine lying awake at 3 a.m. wondering if what you decided that day might hurt or help thousands of people tomorrow? That kind of pressure isn't visible when you see a calm face behind a pulpit, but it was there night after night. Still, one of the most striking things about Robert, even before he wore the papal ring, was how he handled criticism. And let's be honest, criticism in religious leadership is not only common, it's constant. Back when he was just starting out as an Augustinian priest, he faced real pushback for the changes he wanted to make. Some folks didn't just disagree, they were angry. But Robert never clapped back, never called people out in public. Instead, he'd do something almost nobody does anymore: he invited them to meet with him privately, face to face. No defensiveness, no arrogance, just real conversation. Who does that anymore? Who actually takes the time to listen when they're being criticized? That ability to separate the issue from the person became his signature move, Louis says. Even when attacked personally, he separates the criticism from the person. That takes an emotional maturity that most of us are still trying to learn, even in our everyday relationships. Robert once told his brother, "I can disagree with someone's opinion without questioning their worth as a person." How refreshing is that? In a world where people are cancelled for a tweet or unfriended over a different viewpoint, here's someone who leads with understanding, not ego. And another thing, he never acted like he had all the answers. Despite all the titles, all the accolades, Robert was never too proud to seek counsel. He had his circle of trusted mentors, the kind of people who could check him, guide him, and help him stay grounded. Because let's face it, climbing any ladder, especially one as intense as the church hierarchy, can mess with your sense of reality. But Robert always made a conscious effort to stay rooted in humility, in the relationships that mattered, and in the advice of those who'd walked similar paths. So when you think of Pope Leo XIV, it's easy to see the public image, the serene man in white delivering hope to thousands. But thanks to Louis, we get something way more valuable: a glimpse of the real man behind the title. A man who missed countless family dinners. A man who cried alone after losing his mom. A man who questioned everything, even his own purpose. A man who stayed up late carrying burdens that didn't even belong to him. But above all, a man who never stopped listening, learning, and loving, quietly, deeply, and with unwavering grace. And isn't that what true strength really looks like? They say blood is thicker than water, but what if blood carries secrets too dark to ignore? After decades of silence, Pope Leo's older brother just broke his silence at 73. And trust me, what he shares will make you rethink everything you thought you knew. The worst part? The final detail he let slip at the end is the most chilling of all. Don't miss it, Pope Leo's older brother's revelation. You know those moments in life that hit you so hard you feel it in your chest, like your heart skips a beat and your brain's trying to catch up with what just happened? That was exactly how Louis Provost felt when he saw his younger brother step out onto that iconic Vatican balcony as the newly elected Pope Leo XIV. I mean, can you imagine? One minute you're sharing stories from childhood, arguing over who gets the last piece of cake or who broke the kitchen clock, and the next minute he's being introduced to the world as the new spiritual leader of over 1 billion Catholics. Louis said his voice cracked when he tried to talk about it. And honestly, how could it not? That kind of moment would shake anyone. He described it as shock and awe, and you could tell those words weren't just a soundbite for the press, they were real. They came from a place deep in his heart, where joy and disbelief were having a quiet wrestling match. But here's the thing, and isn't this always the case with big, life-changing news? Behind the applause, the smiling cardinals, and the fanfare that comes with papal robes and that famous white smoke, there was this undercurrent of quiet worry. Not bitterness, not jealousy, not even sadness exactly, just this deep, aching concern. Because while the rest of the world was cheering, Louis and his other brother John Provost were trying to wrap their heads around what this all really meant for their family, and especially for Robert, now Pope Leo XIV. Can you blame them? It's not every day your sibling becomes the most powerful religious figure on earth. John especially opened up about the roller coaster of feelings he went through, and you know what? He didn't sugarcoat it. He said it was extreme joy, extreme pride. But right after that, he was hit with a wave of anxiety. And let's be honest, who wouldn't be? This wasn't just a promotion. It was a seismic shift. John couldn't help but wonder, how's Robert really going to carry this burden? Because let's face it, being Pope isn't just about smiling and waving from balconies. It's about leading a global church that's facing some serious storms right now. And John sees that clearly. He said it himself, it's a huge responsibility, one that's becoming heavier by the day. He's not just worried about Robert burning out. He's thinking about the entire weight of Catholicism, about how fractured the community already is, and how much more strain lies ahead. Isn't that such a heavy thing to hold, not just as a religious leader but as a brother who just wants to see his siblings safe, happy, and thriving? And then there's the tender part that really hits you, the part where they talk about their late parents. They're not here to see this moment, but both Louis and John know without a doubt that their mom and dad would have felt the same bittersweet mix of bursting pride and deep-rooted concern. It's that kind of pride that brings tears to your eyes and makes you hold your breath just a little, because every parent wants to see their child soar, but when the skies are stormy, it's hard not to wonder if the wings will hold. Do you know what I mean? It's such a human reaction to want the best for someone you love while still fearing what that best might actually cost them. What makes this story even more moving is how real and raw these brothers are about it all. They're not trying to sound noble or overly composed. They're not standing in the shadow of greatness pretending everything is perfect. They're just two brothers grappling with the idea that their own sibling now belongs to the world in a way he never did before. Think about that. Their brother isn't just Robert anymore. He's Leo XIV. He's got a security team. He's got protocol. He's got obligations stacked higher than the Sistine Chapel ceiling. Can they even call him at night like they used to? Can they sit around and talk about old times or laugh about something stupid they did as kids, or is that all behind them now? You can tell they miss him already, even if he hasn't really gone anywhere, because sometimes distance isn't about miles. It's about what someone becomes. And while they're incredibly proud, that pride comes wrapped in layers of longing and worry and hope. Hope that he doesn't lose himself. Hope that the world doesn't chew him up and spit him out. Hope that beneath the robes and the titles and the expectations, their brother is still their brother. It's the kind of story that stays with you not because it's about power or prestige, but because it's about people. It's about love. It's about the way our biggest moments are never just ours. They ripple through the people who love us the most, quietly changing everything. And even when those changes are good, they're still changes. And change, as we all know, always comes with a cost. So while the world may be focused on Pope Leo XIV, it's the voices of Louis and John Provost, quiet, thoughtful, full of heart, that remind us what's happening behind the scenes. Because behind every great man, every powerful leader, there's usually a family watching from the sidelines, clapping with pride while quietly whispering to each other, "Do you think he's okay? Do you think this is too much?" Fame changed their relationship. Visualize a life when you've spent your whole existence being ridiculously close to your brothers, like the kind of close where you're calling each other up just to talk about something random you saw on TV or to share a funny joke you just heard, or maybe even to rant about some frustrating news headline. That's the kind of bond Louis, John, and Robert had. They were brothers, sure, but more than that, they were each other's sounding boards, daily companions, best friends. And now everything's changed. Not just changed like someone moved to another city. No, we're talking changed in the sense that Robert is now the Pope. Like the Pope? Can you even wrap your head around that? So naturally things aren't as simple anymore. And it's not just about the titles or the robes or the formality of it all. It's about the actual relationship between the brothers. That easy, natural closeness they used to share is hanging in the balance now. Louis even said something that'll probably stay stuck in your head for a while. He was just reflecting and asked, will we be able to have that brother relationship anymore, or will we be sharing it with the world? And honestly, that question, it hits different, because it's not just about losing time with your brother. It's about losing a version of him that felt private, personal, just yours. John chimed in too, trying to describe what their connection used to look like before all this. He shared how the brothers would talk on the phone every single day. Think about that for a second. Every day. It didn't matter if they were talking about deep stuff like religion or just having fun playing Wordle together. It was a steady, comforting rhythm in their lives. The kind of thing you take for granted until suddenly it's not there anymore. But the real kicker, it's not just about distance or time zones. It's about access. Louis admitted plain and simple that he's worried. Worried about not seeing his brother. About maybe never having that spontaneous "hey, let's grab a coffee" kind of moment ever again. He even said, will we ever see him again? And you can hear the ache in that, can't you? It's not dramatic. It's deeply human. That fear of someone you love becoming unreachable, not because they don't care, but because the world suddenly needs them more than you do. And John, he described the whole thing as bittersweet, which honestly might be the best word for it. Sweet, because wow, what an honor, right? Your brother becoming the Pope. That's beyond historic. But bitter too, because it comes at a cost. It's already strange not having someone to talk to, he said. And that quiet kind of sadness, it lingers. Now here's where things get even more real. Louis, being the thoughtful big brother he is, actually asked Robert straight up if he was sure, like really sure, about taking on this massive lifelong responsibility. And Robert, his answer was as humbling as it gets. He just said, I will accept it. It's God's will. It's in his hands. No hesitation. No dramatics. Just quiet faith, like he knew deep in his bones that this was his path, even if it meant leaving behind pieces of his old life. Pieces like daily chats with his brothers. And then there's Louis again, being raw and vulnerable in a way that just makes your heart sink a little. He admitted that he's still reeling from it all. It's going to take a while. The initial shock hasn't worn off. I don't know that it ever will, he said. And can you blame him? One minute your brother's joking about Wordle and the next he's the head of the Catholic Church. Who doesn't need time to process that? But underneath all of it, beneath the title, the Vatican walls, the global attention, these brothers once laughed, argued, supported, and leaned on each other through life. And now that triangle feels like it's wobbling. Not broken. No. Just adjusting. And the adjustment, it's painful. It's tender. It's hard to talk about without your voice cracking a little. Why did Pope Leo's own brother wait this long to reveal what he really knows? Was he protecting him or protecting us? At 73, he is finally opening up, and what he says will make you question the image of the man millions once revered. And just when you think you have heard it all, the ending twist hits like a lightning bolt. Watch till the last second to see how the past shapes the Pope today. From the very beginning, faith was not just a part of life for the Provost family, it was the heartbeat of their home. His parents, Louis and Mildred, were the kind of Catholics who did not just go to church on Sundays and call it a day. No, they lived their faith. His dad, Louis Marius Provost, was this super disciplined guy who balanced a full career as a school superintendent while still diving headfirst into parish life. And when I say involved, I mean involved. He was not just a face in the pews, he was president of the Altar and Rosary Society, which is no small thing. He even helped organize the distribution of 1,000 polio vaccines at their church. Like, who does that? That is the kind of man he was, always giving, always present. And then there was Mildred, his mom. Oh, she was a force in her own right. She worked as a librarian at Mendel Catholic High School, so education was clearly a big deal in their house. But get this, she did not just stick to books. She was also a shining light in church plays, leading roles and all. and she was head of the St. Mary Altar and Rosary Society. It was like she wore 10 hats, but she wore each one with this quiet grace. And just like her husband, she believed deeply in education too. Both of them even earned graduate degrees from DePaul University in 1949, which was no small feat back then. That alone tells you everything about the example they set. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that sounds like a really solid family, but were they really that devout? Oh yes. Linda George, who grew up just down the street from them, remembers it so clearly. His family was very, very devout Catholics. The mom and dad both were, she said. They never missed church. Can you imagine that level of consistency? Rain or shine, holiday or weekday, they were there in the pews, present, active. Faith was not a checkbox for them, it was the rhythm of their lives. And growing up in that part of Chicago, it just amplified everything. The South Side back then was a world where your neighbors felt like extended family, and everything pretty much revolved around two things, your family and your faith. Reverend Tom McCarthy, who has known Pope Leo since the 80s, put it perfectly. He said, it was very family-oriented, very Catholic. You went to Catholic schools, you stayed in the neighborhood, you worked hard. That is the kind of place that does not just raise kids, it shapes them. And Pope Leo, he is the ultimate product of that environment. Everyone at St. Mary of the Assumption knew the provosts. Noel Nice, who sat behind them at Mass on Sundays, remembers them vividly. They were always there, she said. That kind of consistency, that quiet, unwavering presence, it leaves a mark. And when two of Mildred's sisters became nuns, well, it is like religious life was not just encouraged in the family, it was a natural extension of who they were. Like, how could you not be drawn to a spiritual path in a family like that? But here is what makes Pope Leo even more relatable. You would think being Pope means he is isolated now, right? Up in the Vatican, all serious and distant? Nope. The man still calls his brothers regularly. In fact, before he took on the papal role, he and his brother John talked every single day. And not just serious conversations either, they started with Wordle. Yes, Wordle, followed by words with friends. Is that not the cutest thing? It is like amidst all the weight of leading the church, he still finds time for daily word games with his brother. That is how grounded he is. And those chats are not just about fun and games. Pope Leo genuinely values their advice. John says he is the kind of guy who speaks up when he has something on his heart. He is not going to hold back when conviction calls. That is something he has carried with him from his early days. His other brother, Louis, mentioned how he hopes his brother can bring different sides together, because that is who he is, a bridger. Someone who does not just pray to God and leave it at that, but someone who also listens, to cardinals, to nuns, to priests, to bishops. That open-mindedness? That is family influence too. Now sure, they worry that things will change now that he is Pope. The schedule, the responsibilities, the spotlight, it is a lot. But here is the beautiful part. No matter how high he climbs or how much pressure he faces, those foundational bonds with his family, with his roots, with his faith, they do not fade. They are part of him. They are the compass that keeps him grounded. Is that not kind of rare these days? So when you look at Pope Leo XIV and wonder how he got to be the way he is, so thoughtful, so grounded, so principled, you just have to look at the people who raised him. The streets he walked as a kid. The church pews he sat in every single Sunday. And the brothers he still plays word games with to this day. It is not just a story about rising to power. It is a story about how faith, family, and deep, unwavering values can shape a person in the most beautiful, lasting way. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.